Hello there, this is the Student Theologian with another upload for you guys. I know it's been a while since I've posted one of my thoughts on episodes. I've been bogged down lately with some final stuff, getting the semester completed, and some other mental stuff I've been dealing with. But I'm back, and we are back. And we're going to talk about a plethora of updates and stuff, ranging from theology to some geopolitical issues, mostly in America this time. I'm going to talk about my experience at the Ark, but first I want to give some life updates. So recently moved, so that was a journey. I got a lot of good workout in that. I made the mistake of putting all my books in one bag, so that ended up being like a 200 something pound bag that I had to carry, but I'm sure it built character, and that's the important thing. But with me living off campus now, I'm able to do online classes should I desire that. I have more flexibility with how I do my schedule with work and college, so that's a positive. And overall, because of my situation with where I work and stuff, it ends up saving me a little bit of money every month. And as you probably can't tell, but my room is more spacey. Okay. And it's close to the house that I'm renting with. I'm renting with with some of my friends from church, so I get to save money overall, and we're close to the church, which is good. Okay, so I told you about my move. I'm still single, unfortunately. Trying to think of what. There was one other thing I wanted to update you guys on with my life, and I can't remember what it is now. My school, my last semester finished really well. I was actually impressed and surprised that I got as good as grades on these finals as I did, because I did some guessing on my church history 2 exam when it started. They started asking questions about all the Enlightenment thinkers. I thought that I might have gotten a lot of those wrong, but I ended up getting most of my guesses right. So I made a 90 in all my courses, a 90 and above. So that was a blessing, for sure. So I wanted to get to the second part of my list here, and I'm really excited to talk about this. My experience at the Ark Encounter. And unfortunately, when I moved over here, I thought the Ark Encounter was going to be a lot closer to Louisville, so I ended up driving an hour and a half over there. But I feel like it was worth it. Definitely worth it. So I went all the way over there, parked, and bought the ticket. And it was about $70 per person. Probably cheaper for old people or children and stuff, but it was just me. So they took us on the bus. They dropped us over there to, conveniently speaking, they dropped us off at the gift shop. And then at that point, I was by myself, which I feel like when you're going by yourself to a museum or the Ark Encounter, it's better because you can take your time and read all the things that the museum and the Ark Encounter has. So that's what I did. After the bus dropped me off, went to the gift shop, went to this rainbow bridge they had, which is beautiful. It's on my. If you follow me on Facebook, I'm the student theologian. It's a new page I created that's associated with my YouTube account. I uploaded some pictures, and I uploaded the full album on my Facebook profile, my private Facebook profile that's public now. But yeah, it was beautiful. And the Ark itself was built exactly how you would picture the Ark. And I took a picture of it, and the weather was beautiful on that day. There was these big clouds. The sky was blue. It was 70 degrees, so you couldn't ask for a better day to go to the Ark. So at that point, it was a pretty long trip, and I got my walking distance and my cardio in, so that was a plus. But you go there. Your first level, I think, is the I think when you first get in there, I believe you're on the second floor, so you have to go downstairs and then back up. I tried to see everything. I went through all the floors. I think there was 4, if I remember, 3 or 4. But there was a lot to it. Like when you start learning about the Ark as a kid, it makes sense to you. And then when you get an adult, when you get to being an adult or a teenager, you start asking, well, how could all the species of all the animals in the world fit on this boat? Even if the boat was pretty big, surely it wouldn't be possible to actually fit all these animals on it, right? The Ark Encounter and Ken Ham, who's associated with it, they make a great argument for the biblical account. And they say that according to the biblical account, it was kinds of animals. It wasn't every single species that ever existed, which that makes sense. So the biblical account says that the kinds of animals would then, after the ark, after Noah's flood and the earth was dry, they would be spread out. And then after that point, that's when animals would begin to grow at these adaptations. Some would get bigger, some would get smaller. The megafauna, the dinosaurs and stuff like that, they would have died out due to the climate change that happened after the flood. The flood would have resulted in one global ice age. The biblical account teaches that there was only one global ice age that probably killed off most of the dinosaurs. A lot of the other megafauna were killed off by humans due to hunting and other reasons. And in the Ark, they have all these animatronics. They don't move, though, so they're more like just wax figurines, I think, of different animals and stuff, and that was really cool. I'm glad they had the T-Rex on there as a representative of the Tyrannosaur family, because that's obviously the most popular, and I believe that the T-Rex is America's dinosaur. That's what I believe. There's no biblical evidence for that, but that's just my opinion. But then you had the Baryonyx as the Spinosaurid family. You had all these different representatives of these different kinds of animals. It was incredible to see. You saw these short-faced bear. And the thing that the Ark makes an argument for is that all these animals were in the Ark as babies, so they would not be as big, or they would not require as much food or water. Then the Ark makes the argument as to how they would be able to take care of all these different animals. They gave you a number. There was all these graphs and stuff. And I'm glad they had all these. But they had a graph with all the number of animals that were actually in the Ark. I think it was around like 20,000 or something. Then it describes how they could have fed and taken care of all these animals. I mean, other than the fact that Noah and his family didn't have Netflix or anything else to do other than take care of the animals, they also had the ingenuity. They had these systems, these pulley systems that were able to filter out animal waste and bring in water that was from the rain. And I'm a firm believer as well that it could be entirely possible that God could have caused all these animals to hibernate so they wouldn't need food or water for 40 days, or however long it took for the waters to recede enough for them to find land. I think what impressed me most about the Ark Encounter is the emphasis on the gospel itself. There was these signs that said that the Ark is a parallel, pointing ahead to the Ark that is Christ, Christ being the one who could save you from the flood of sin and death. And it's only by taking that Ark that you can escape sin and death. And that's the overarching argument that the Ark Encounter makes. You saw a video, and I only had like 3 hours to do the whole thing. So I didn't have time to watch the entire video, but it had a gospel presentation, a story where he presents the gospel with Ray Comfort. So that was pretty cool. There was a lot of books and stuff there that I could have bought, but I don't have the huge amount of money to burn, so I kind of just, as soon as I got done with the Ark Encounter, I kind of just drove home. Now, there was a zoo right outside of it, and a lot of people don't realize this, but there is a zoo. So I got to see some cool animals, such as a porcupine. I saw a sloth that looked like it was trying to eat a light bulb. So that was an experience. I have the picture on my Facebook, and it says the sloth is obsessed with this light bulb. But yeah, he was just face to face with the light bulb, just trying to, I don't know what he was doing. But he just looked enthralled with it. I yearn to be as happy as a sloth with a light bulb. So I saw a porcupine, and they had this little trail where you can actually walk in there and get face to face with a wallaby. And yeah, it was a wallaby. It wasn't a kangaroo. They had kangaroos over there, but I think that officially this was a wallaby. And I didn't pay for this, but I saw people riding camels, so that apparently that's something you can pay extra for. I did take some good pictures of the camels. I saw the alpacas. One looked like he was getting ready to spit at me, so I walked away. I saw some like snakes and stuff, but I didn't see any like reptiles, or huge reptiles or carnivores or something like that. I did see a rock iguana that blended in perfectly. It was gray and it blended in the sidewalk, so I sat there for like 10 minutes trying to find the iguana, and I was like, there's no iguana in here. And I finally went to the sidewalk, and surely enough, that's where he was. He was blending in perfectly with the sidewalk. And so that was plus. It's always cool to learn about animals from a biblical perspective, because most YouTube videos and documentaries, when you watch all these nature films and stuff, they talk from the evolution perspective. But that's what makes Noah's Ark Encounter special. That's what makes their zoo special, because all these exhibits, their sign and stuff that talks about these animals, that talks about them from a biblical perspective. So you're not going to have anything like, well, this is where this animal evolved from. Instead, this is how God created this animal with these adaptations. So it was a great experience, and if you ever have the opportunity to go to the Ark Encounter, I definitely would recommend it. I'm supposed to go back soon with my family, so that if they ever get over here, and so that will be fun to see my nieces and nephews react to all the stuff at Noah's Ark, because they love animals, and my youngest niece, she loves dinosaurs too, so she's really gonna love it. All right, so I want to go over a couple of political issues, and then close with the theological point that I was going to make at the end of this video. So the first point I want to talk about is why mass migration fails. And Trump is gotten a lot more ballsy lately with his crackdown on illegal immigration. And it's actually crazy to see how the Overton window has shifted away so far to the right, that we're not only just questioning illegal immigration, we're questioning mass immigration as a whole, and why we're allowing people from these particular areas or this particular religion to come over here. I think we need to remember what Arnold Schwarzenegger said on The View, that you as an immigrant, you're a guest. I don't think immigration is a right that is owed to everyone. I think it's a privilege. to be able to come live in America, the greatest country on earth. And it's even greater privilege to be able to have opportunities here, whether that be work or education. And so you need to love the country, you need to respect our culture, and you need to assimilate into our culture. Well, you need to respect the fact that we're a Christian nation built by Europeans, that we value stuff like freedom and liberty, the Constitution. I'm not in favor of just allowing anyone to enter the country who doesn't respect that. I don't want people who enter the country who don't want to learn our language, who don't care enough to assimilate into our culture. I don't want to let in people who hate America or the Constitution or don't respect democracy. And that's what Trump is getting at when he says that Somalians don't come from a bad country, a bad culture. They don't assimilate into America. So I don't think that we should allow very many Somalian immigrants into America, if at all, because their culture is anarchy, Islam. And if you see the way that these immigrants have turned to Minnesota, you would see the problems that they cause. And that's what ICE is basically trying to clean out Minnesota from all these different Somalian immigrants who have taken over that place. I mean, Minnesota used to be one a beautiful state, a European state, a Christian state. And now that's all been turned away. That's all been reversed due to unchecked mass migration. And this is probably one of the most controversial points I hold, but I don't think that the immigration rate should be more than the birth rate. Let me repeat that because I feel like I stuttered. The migration rate should not be higher than the birth rate. Meaning you don't want to import a bunch of people who are going to ethnically replace your people, your native people. Because that's national suicide. That's how you kill a nation and a culture and a people. And we're not going to do that. The Overton window has shifted. And I love it. And it's great. So now the Democrats are forced to be put in a position where they're defending the very issue of immigration itself. The American dream is supposed to be for the Americans. And we don't owe the world educational opportunities. We don't owe the world work opportunities. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger said, when you come to America, you're a guest. And you should treat it with respect and not. You should learn our language, learn our culture and customs, and learn to love America, or else we don't want you here. And I think the immigration system does need to be a lot more tighter. I said this on other podcasts as well. I don't think that we should be importing more than 100,000 immigrants a year total. So only the best and brightest immigrants who know English and who are Christian should be allowed to come here. We don't have room for anyone else. And we have that right to do that. Immigration is not a right. It's not ingrained in the Constitution that everyone has a right, that everyone in the world has a right to come over to America. It's not constitutional. And that's not the vision that George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and all the founding fathers had and the rest of the founding fathers and the rest of the Civil War veterans. That's not the image that they had when they fought for America. Somalians did not contribute to America at all. They did not fight in the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, World War I or II. No. America was built by European Protestants, to be more exact. And that's the culture of America. That's the culture we have to protect. And we can protect that by making immigration more strict and less So, and all this outrage over ICE, the fact that we have all these people, these liberals on Twitter, essentially saying that ICE are a bunch of fascists. This is what encourages violence against police officers, against ICE, against our military personnel. And this is why National Guardsmen have been literally shot by Islamic terrorists on American soil. Just like 9/11, this is an Islamic attack on America. And yet, there's no outrage from the left. No one cares. According to the left, they try to blame these tragedies on Trump. But the truth of the matter is, U.S. soldiers have a right to be in America. And they have a right to patrol their neighborhoods, our neighborhoods, to ensure we're safe. And they have a right to do that without getting shot at by Islamic terrorists. So Muslims have no right to be in America. Islam is a cancer upon the world. Their culture is one of rape, murder, terrorism, pedophilia. And we don't need to import any of these ideas or concepts into America, or the West for that matter. I think this terrorist attack that happened against these National Guardsmen, I think this is why Trump is becoming more extreme when it comes to the Somalian immigrants. And I welcome that. I think that's awesome. However, we do have to continue to pray for the National Guardsmen that were shot. I think one of them is still in the hospital. I think the other one's passed away, if I'm not mistaken. So pray for their families and pray for the safety of all our soldiers and police force and ICE. Because not only are they tolerating violence against these people, against our military and police officers and ICE, they're actually encouraging it, which is sad. But it's not unexpected either, because these are the same people who continue to celebrate Charlie Kirk's death and continue to mock his living widow, which is sad. But I think things like this, it could be easy for me to get mad and want revenge against the left, but I just hold fast to the truth that revenge is of the Lord's, and he will pay back everyone according to what they've done. What comes around will go around. What goes around will come around. You reap what you sow. So that's what I'm clinging to in moments like this. Now, the other political issue I want to touch on is Sabrina Carpenter's comments. And in case you've been living under a rock, Sabrina Carpenter is a liberal feminist who got mad that the U.S. government used one of her songs in a ICE quote-unquote propaganda video. It's fine, just use a different song. It's fine, we don't need Sabrina Carpenter's music anyways, and this is another spoiled Hollywood brat that thinks that she's better than the rest of us, working class people. She's never had to work a day in her life. And now that she's rich and lives in a tightly safe, all-white neighborhood, she thinks that the rest of us need to import and allow in millions of unchecked and illegal immigrants. So she lectures us despite the fact that she doesn't live around illegal immigrants or immigrants in general. And that's why she's delusional. I think that all these Hollywood celebrities are just delusional retards who don't understand how the real world works, because they're so far removed from living paycheck to paycheck, from being in survival mode. They don't actually have to encounter all the problems that illegal immigrants cause or that liberal governments cause. They're sheltered away from that. They live in a fake world that they've created. And all these people who think that Sabrina Carpenter is going to be this hammer that finally beats back the far right. That's hilarious because Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris, and they thought the same thing about her. They thought that Taylor Swift would be this hammer that knocks back against the right and that helps propel Kamala Harris to victory. And how did that work out? Kamala Harris lost every single battleground state, all of them, and Trump won the popular vote. It was a referendum against the Hollywood elites, against globalism, against mass immigration, against the Democrat vision of America. We embraced MAGA. We embraced Trump's vision for America. And Trump has kind of been wishy-washy when it comes to that. Now he seems to be being better at appealing to the masses, at appealing to his fan base. But there has been some points where Trump has compromised, where we were disappointed with him. But now Trump's doing well. I hope that this is going to be the side of Trump that we're going to see throughout the rest of his term, because he could do some really great things if that's so. And I'm not at all worried about Sabrina Carpenter's opposition to the Trump agenda. If I was Trump, I would encourage all celebrities, all rappers, all pop stars to endorse my enemies, because it seems to have the opposite effect that these elites expected to have. I mean, Sabrina Carpenter endorsed Kamala Harris as well. Kamala Harris had all the support of all the Hollywood elites, the pop stars. And how did that work out for her? We've reached a day in American society where the working class will vote opposite the Hollywood elites on almost all the issues. So the endorsements of these Hollywood elites actually serves as a detriment to liberal politicians and not a positive. They're not assets. Like if I was the Democrat nomination, if I won the Democrat nomination, I was going to go head to head with J.D. Vance. I would encourage Hollywood elites not to endorse me publicly. I would tell Sabrina Carpenter to stay at home. Don't endorse me publicly. I would tell Taylor Swift, don't endorse me publicly. Stay out of politics. Because you're just hurting my election. You're hurting my election chances. So I'm going to stick with my election predictions and say that J.D. Vance wins pretty handily in 2028. Probably not to the extent of Trump, but he's still going to win, I think, most of the battleground states. And it's not going to be a close race because the liberals have not understood yet their lesson that they should have understood last year's election. And that is, we're tired of our borders being destroyed, and we're tired of mass immigration changing our culture and our cities into third world shitholes. And we're tired of the liberals who are calling everyone a Nazi for opposing them. The liberals should do self-reflection, look inside themselves, and find out why they're losing the working class. And until they figure that out, they're going to lose, and lose again. Okay. So I think that's all I have to say about all these issues. Okay. I just want to close out with mentioning one Hollywood celebrity who has done self-reflection, Jennifer Lawrence. And I'm surprised that she has done this, but she has said that in an interview, one of the reporter asked her if she still is anti-Trump, and she says she doesn't talk about politics anymore because the people don't want to hear it. Wow, talk about correct self-evaluation. That's the level of self-awareness that 99% of Hollywood stars do not have. So I think if they learned a thing from Jennifer Lawrence, they would stop hurting the Democrats so much. But I don't think that they are going to learn anything from Jennifer Lawrence. I think they're left us so far gone into delusion and insanity that they're probably just going to label Jennifer Lawrence a coward and then continue to shoot themselves in the foot. And if I was J.D. Vance, I would be happy with that proposition. So, something I want to talk about with my theology, with my theology segment, is Jonah. Jonah is another Old Testament story that I really like, and it's also been doubted by a lot of liberal scholars. A lot of people are like, how could Jonah have gotten swallowed by this big fish or whale, and how could he have survived throughout that ordeal? Well, what if Jonah did not survive that ordeal? Give me a second to explain what I mean by that. So I have a professor. My Old Testament 2 professor is the one who introduced me to this idea that Jonah actually died when he was in the belly of the whale. And it seems crazy to suggest that, because you would need biblical reasoning why. You need biblical evidence. And I think there is biblical evidence. Now, if you go to Jonah chapter 2, now this is after he's been thrown overboard the ship, and this is after he's been swallowed by the whale, the great fish. But Jonah 2, verse 2, says, I cried out to the Lord in my great trouble, and he answered me. I called to you from the land of the dead, and Lord, you heard me. So he's calling from the Lord from the land of the dead, which hints at the idea that Jonah was actually dead in the whale. And the idea is that God resurrected Jonah, and Jonah serves as this type of Christ figure. Now, Jesus is, of course, the superior figure when it comes to that comparison. And in the New Testament as well, Jesus compares how the Son of Man is going to be in the ground the same way Jonah was in the whale. So it makes biblical sense from the Old Testament and the New Testament that Jonah died and was resurrected in the whale. And it would make sense that after he was resurrected, the whale spit him up, probably. Now, to answer back against the liberal critics, they find no rationality for how this could have happened. But the story of Jonah and the whale, it's a miracle, not just the fact that a whale went up and swallowed this guy who just fell in the ocean, but God causing the storm, God causing Jonah to die in the whale, potentially, probably, then God resurrecting him. And the liberal theologians, can I even call them theologians at this point? Because at this point they're just heretics. But they deny all the miracles of Scripture, all the miracles in the Old Testament and New Testament, so they don't take into account anything that would seem unnatural or supernatural. But I think that's a part of that. A huge part of the story of Jonah is accepting that God is supernatural, that God is sovereign and able to do whatever he wills to do. And it's another takeaway that you get from understanding the narrative of Jonah is that you cannot go outside of God's will for you. If God wants you to do something, he's going to make it happen. I know this isn't the image that the Arminians would have you believe, but it's the image that the narrative of Jonah tells us. And we have to accept what the Bible teaches us about this story, rather than trying to make up a reasonable explanation ourselves. And I think that what the Bible says with Jonah calling from the place of the dead, with Jesus comparing his time in the ground with Jonah's time in the well, I think we do have to accept that Jonah was in fact dead when he was in the belly of the well, which is something I never pieced together before I took this Old Testament 2 class. So I'm definitely grateful for this class that I've been taking. I'm grateful for my time in seminary, that I'm learning about all these things, that I'm continuing to grow in my education of the Bible. And I'm always thankful that the seminary I'm going to has such a strong biblical foundation. But that's going to do it for my video today. And until next time, this has been the Student Theologian.